30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something good happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Good evening. This is the latest from the GB Newsroom. The Prime Minister says the UK needs to evolve its approach when it comes to dealing with Russia and China. In his first major foreign policy speech since taking office, Mr Sunak also said the so-called golden era of relations with China is over, as he stressed the need for the government to do away with wishful thinking.
We can't depend on Cold War arguments or approaches, or mere sentimentality about our past. So we will make an evolutionary leap in our approach. It means delivering a stronger economy at home as the foundation of our strength abroad. And it means standing up to our competitors, not with grand rhetoric, but with robust pragmatism.
More than 50 Conservative MPs have signed a letter urging the Prime Minister to introduce emergency legislation to ease the migrant crisis. They want modern slavery laws changed so that people are returned to safe countries faster. They also say those who claim they've been trafficked should be sent back without objection. Signatories, including Sir Graham Brady and Esther McVeigh, believe it would deter people from crossing the Channel. GB News understands almost 450 people have been intercepted on 9 small boats so far today. The government has scrapped a new proposal to make it illegal to encourage self-harm online. The revised online safety bill will instead put the responsibility on platforms to take down material in breach of their own terms of service, following concerns over free speech. The amendments were influenced by the case of 14-year-old Molly Russell, who ended her life in 2017 after viewing harmful content on social media. A British man suspected of leading an international drug ring has been detained by law enforcement. The Europe-led police operation, including officers from the UK's National Crime Agency, arrested 49 people across France, Spain, Belgium, the Netherlands and the UAE. A second British man accused of having a key financial role within the gang has also been arrested. More than 30 tonnes of cocaine was seized. The White House, along with the UK's Foreign Secretary, are backing the right to peaceful protests in China over COVID restrictions. Protesters turned out again this evening despite a strong police presence. It follows demonstrations over the weekend, which started after 10 people were killed in a fire at an apartment block. Protesters blame quarantine measures, saying they prevented the victims from escaping. And the National Grid has decided not to introduce its energy-saving scheme tomorrow, paying households if they cut power usage. The move would have been the first ever live run of the operator's demand flexibility service, designed to ease pressure on the country's energy grid and avoid blackouts. TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's over to headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon and I'm here with two top lads, Paul Cox and Jonathan Cogan, who stepped in heroically at the last minute, hence that jumper. No excuse for Paul's shirt, though. I'll be going through all the top stories with them in a moment, but first let's smash through Tuesday's front pages. So the Daily Mail has Keir's class war threat to 200 private schools. The Eye is going with Tory rebellion on wind farms, new threat to PM's authority. Financial Times, Lagarde says ECB not done raising rates despite signs of easing inflation. The Times, social media fined for child accounts. The Sun has do or die. And the Metro is Russia's shame. And finally, the Star goes with come on, which is a football reference. And those were your front pages. So let's kick off with The Guardian, Jonathan. I'm laughing because you fixed your attire.
I put my jacket on. I felt a bit self-conscious. You know, I put on some weight, so I wore a baggy. Maybe it was a sertraline.
What, in the last few seconds you put on weight?
Yeah, stress eating. OK, let's do the news, guys. Come on, all right. Sunak warning over China as Xi continues crackdown on protest. So, I mean, this has been all over the papers today. So Rishi Sunak has signalled the end of the golden era of relations between Britain and China when he used his first major foreign policy speech to warn of the creeping authoritarianism of Xi Jinping's regime. I mean, it's hardly creeping, if you ask me. It's been pretty severe.
It's crept, really, hasn't it?
It's such a good point. I mean, the first question I had after reading this was, why now? I mean, did he not see Hong Kong a year or two ago?
But he wasn't Prime Minister.
No, he wasn't, but he was...
Was he? No.
No.
I don't read the news.
Not this week.
Yeah.
But he you know, it's not like... he has had opinions and views on China before now in his various positions. So I don't understand why now, really.
Well, the irony of it is it's happened after the crackdown on lockdown protests, whereas we were cracking down on lockdown protests all over the place, manhandling people. Yeah. Much of Europe was doing it. Holland seemed particularly bad. And now that China does it, we're all like, oh, we've got to crack down on Xi. It's like, well, what about us in the West?
It's such a good point. I don't know if you agree, John, but it's a view of what could be for us. I mean...
Oh, that's what happens when the state becomes completely tyrannical and you have, you know, a totalitarian regime restricting the freedoms of people just on a whim. It's terrifying. No country is completely safe from going down that route eventually.
So the story is that these people the Chinese people are protesting. That's the story. It's not, you know, you have to look deeper to see what they're protesting about, but the fact that they're protesting, Tiananmen Square keeps getting mentioned, and you know that didn't really bring about change, but it just goes to show you how important it is to have freedom of ideas and freedom of speech, I think.
Yeah, and he's toned down his language since he was on the campaign trail. He was saying that China was a threat. Now he's saying it's not a threat, but we need to sort of monitor it. But I do think it's amazing that the media has changed their tune as well. Did you see that Sky News was talking about the remarkable bravery of the protesters, whereas when it was the protesters here, they weren't brave. They were evil anti-vaxxers to be destroyed and demonized.
Maybe 3 years was the cut-off point. 3 years is fine. Anything afterwards is then you're a hero. Who knows?
All right. Well, that's The Guardian pretty much covered. So let's do the Mail next. And Paul, what do you think?
Keir's class war threat to 200 private schools. Well, I would say, I mean, I've got quite an opinion on this, actually. I'm a working class guy from a working class family. I went to a comprehensive school, but I do believe in freedom of choice. I do believe in aspiration. You know, you have to be able to aspire to something. And I think that there are about 600,000 private school children. If you were to take them out of private schools, they'd have to go into the public sector, as we call it here, into comprehensive education.
That would be quite funny. That's how the in-betweeners started.
It would be hilarious, but it would come at a cost. It would come at a huge cost. I'd imagine the fee that's being paid to send those kids there, no matter how astronomical it is nothing in comparison to what it is to educate 600,000 children. So I'm not sure it's going to save any money. They're not targeting the right people because they're not not going to affect. You put it up 20%, you put it up 40%, 60%. People that are trying to attack are still going to be able to afford to send their kids to these schools.
Right.
The super wealthy.
Yeah,
super
wealthy people not even living in this country and all that kind of thing. What do you think, Jonathan?
So it's adding a 20% onto the fees because it'd be VAT, right? So if you VAT registered your kids, you could then offset the tax. So that is an option, just saying.
Wouldn't your kids need to be VAT registered as well and earning over £80,000 a year?
I think you can voluntarily VAT register, apparently. Yeah, I still don't understand it. But no, what do I think? Let the people choose and,
What school did you go to?
I wasn't allowed to go to school because I had some behavioural problems as a child. There was an incident with the scissors and a protractor, so most of my time was spent on the naughty step.
Explains a lot. You grew up sort of like the Joker in some kind of asylum system. And me and Paul went to comprehensives.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I talk about it too much, but what really bothers me about this is it punishes the wrong people. As you said, it's not going to punish the ultra-wealthy. It's going to punish people who've aspired to get their kid into a private school. Maybe they've worked really hard. But also, this is just classic of what, I hate to say it, but what the left do when it comes to education. They destroyed the grammar schools, which was a way for people from poor backgrounds, working class, lower middle class, to go to a good school. They took that away. Of course, Starmer went to Reigate Grammar School, which was a grammar, then it turned into a fee-paying school. He benefited from it. Now they want to take it away from everyone else. This is what happened with the comprehensives, the change from grammar to comprehensive. This isn't exactly the same because it's still people with a certain amount of money, but it's kind of similar, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. And what is an interesting point you make. I don't believe this is a Keir Starmer policy. I believe this is Keir Starmer trying to appease certain parts of the Labour Party. He's lining himself up now.
It was a Corbyn policy originally.
It was it?
I think so, yeah.
It's got Corbyn written all over it, isn't it? But I mean, not to be unfair to Corbyn, and why wouldn't I be? But not to be unfair to Corbyn, it's the sort of thing that the hard left have been dreaming of for years. Eradicating these type of people from society. It's not equal, is it? It's not equal if you've had £45,000 a year education compared to the free education.
But is that not true with almost every aspect of society? Like, if you have more money, you will then there'll be inequality in where you live and your houses and all the technology you own. Like, what's different here? Is it the idea that private schools create a schism or a chasm? Schism in society? I don't know.
They also create an aspiration.
I'm asking the big questions.
I think they create an aspiration. Now, maybe it's unattainable. Maybe I'm a dreamer, but it does create an aspiration and an ambition for people to strive towards. And why not have it?
Here's a question. Would you vote for Keir Starmer? The funny thing about Starmer, right, this is quite a lefty policy. He's been saying quite socially conservative things. If you look at his background, he's a Pabloist, or Pabloite, which is a splinter group from Trotskyism. So it's quite far left. And he used to edit a magazine called Socialist Alternatives. So is Starmer, is he a sort of centrist, conservative with a small c, or is he kind of a quite radical lefty kind of sneaking in? That's my question. And would you vote for him? If you can't answer that question, would you vote for him?
I think, first of all, I think he's a politician. So what he's doing is he's hedging his bets. He had to take the Labour Party away from the Corbynites and create it into what it is now. The last successful Labour government was Tony Blair, and that was because he moved towards the centre, and Starmer's going to have to do the same things to get elected. And he still will have to do that to get elected. If he goes out towards the far left, even with what the Conservatives have done, I think it'd have trouble.
Also, just a brief addition before we move on. On the front page of the Mail, it says how pink noise can aid sleep, but brown noise helps you focus. I thought brown noise was when you hear a really low note and then you just, vacate your... Moving on to the next headline.
Yeah, let's do the Times, Jonathan, before you get yourself in more trouble.
So the social media fines for child accounts. OK, so this is to do with the online safety bill. So social media firms will be forced to bar underage children or face multi-million-pound fines under a new law to protect them from harm online. Now, my intuition here is anything that can protect children online is almost certainly going to be a good thing. The other side of this is, with this bill, there's also going to be some issues here when it pertains to, I guess, free speech online and what people want to hear and what they don't want to hear and what's acceptable. And also they use a term for content being described as illegal but harmful, and I don't really know what that necessarily would entail.
So my understanding is that legal but harmful has been dropped. That's what I believe. But they've still got this thing about harmful communications, where you could say something that offends someone, and technically you could go to prison for 2 years because they didn't like it. It's that kind of thing that worries me. Obviously, we want to protect children, but do we lose free speech, Paul?
Yeah, well, I would say that we have to split this into two camps, really. There's some very obvious things that we do need to be able to police for the want of a much better word, to be honest. You know, anything around paedophilia, anything around encouraging children to commit suicide or think of themselves in a negative way. I think you can park that over there and go, yeah, enforce that. I'll come back to that in a sec. And then there are other things, like you say. How do you determine what's right and wrong speak? How do you determine what a child should hear from a political perspective? How do you determine ideology? And this is where it creeps into an area which we all have, I think, a little bit of an issue with. I don't have any issue with safeguarding whatsoever. I would say, however, I've talked about splitting it into two camps. I'm not sure how you enforce it. So what, you've got to put your date of birth? I mean, things are in place to enforce. I mean, you're not supposed to go onto Twitter under 14 or 16.
Well, that's the issue. There's so many children. There's a statistic here. As many as 1.8 million children under 13 in the UK have a social media account, and they're not meant to. You know, that's a lot of people. And there's also a meta issue here, which is it's not just the content you see. It's even if you're seeing innocuous content, the fact that you're on social media and it's just hijacking your dopamine and your reward system like all day. That is another threat in itself. And I'm glad I didn't have it as a kid, because I'd have gone some weird places.
Absolutely. I've got a teenage daughter. She is on social media in various ways. And you're right about the dopamine. We don't really know the fallout of what social media is for this generation, because we're all living it together at the moment. I think in 20 years' time, we'll all go back and say, maybe we could have policed it differently. I don't know. I hate to say the word policing it, because it sounds like I'm trying to police it. But...
Yeah, because the police are so bad. But the thing is, we don't want the government regulating speech. We want Elon Musk doing it. That's my view. So let's finish this section with the Star poll, and I believe it's fairly football heavy.
It is. Come on, the Star says. And they're talking about our two proud countries that are fighting it out tomorrow evening, obviously England and Wales. Now, I'm a football fan. I'm an Englishman, and I want England to win. I think this plays into the hands of the Welsh. They're the underdog. I think they want to be the underdog. I think most people, if they're not English, will be supporting Wales. They've got nothing to lose, essentially. They're nearly out. England can draw, can win, and still go through. I think England will relax tomorrow. I think they'll win convincingly. But the danger is we have an arrogance about us, and we go about the game all wrong.
Well, you do, Paul. Me and Jonathan were saying before the show. Do you care, Jonathan? Because I'm a massive football fan, but I've been put off by the Qatar World Cup. I've had to work, so I've missed the games. I'm not as bothered as normal. I normally play football on a Tuesday night. We've lost all our players because we're all watching England. I would rather play than watch. But are you bothered?
I thought you were going to ask me to join your team for a second.
No, because I know you don't play, and I know you'd be crushed immediately.
Yeah, I'd do a dangerous tackle. Do I care? Whoever gets more upset when they lose, I want to lose. That's basically it.
Yeah, of course I want England to win, let's be very clear. I'm just not as bothered as I am about previous World Cups. But of course I'll be there.
It doesn't feel
I'll be there with
Christmassy.
my shirt off, my face paint anyway. I just want to clarify. Anything to add, Paul? Because you look like you wanted to add something, but otherwise...
I was doing that on January 6th.
I was just trying to imagine you with face paint on.
All right, I think that's probably enough of that. That's all for part one. Coming up, China gets even more oppressive, monkeypox gets a rebrand, and Jonathan changes into a suit. See you in 2 minutes.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narendra.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon. I'm here with Jonathan Cogan, a.k.a. Kogi, and Paul Cox, a.k.a. Paul. Tuesday's Mail now, and Rishi Sunak, he utters the somewhat terrifying phrase to me, COVID-style task forces, Paul.
Yeah, that is terrifying, isn't it? Rishi Sunak has declared war on cancer, obesity, mental health and addiction with a blueprint inspired by COVID vaccine rollout. The Prime Minister today announced more than 113 million in funding for research into cutting-edge treatments and technology. Now, much like you, Nick, I think it's important that every Prime Minister starts a war, and why not start one on cancer? But this... I've read, obviously, having read this story, it talks about cutting-edge treatments and investing in new technologies. I think he's not going to need £113 million to do that. I think there are much more advanced treatments out there that the NHS can't afford. It's about figuring out how to make the NHS more lean so it can afford to access those new treatments, to access that new technology.
But isn't that the argument of this? I mean, the vaccine rollout, logistically, whatever you thought of the vaccine, and I can't say what I think without getting us booted off air, but whatever you thought of the vaccine, the rollout itself, separated from the actual efficacy of the vaccine, wasn't a sort of good logistical process. So isn't it the right idea to at least take the logistics of that and apply it to other things like cancer and so on?
Yeah, sorry.
So I was going to say, well, they say, COVID-style task forces to treat cancer, but every single person I know in the end ended up getting COVID, so... You don't want it to be the same way, yeah.
I guess that's the effectiveness of the vaccine. However, I do believe that our rollout was second to none. I mean, we were ahead of the game. We were far ahead of Europe, and if we'd been tied into the EU at that point, it would have worked against us. Now, like you say, there are lots of other arguments outside of that, but if we're going to use these COVID-style task forces, where they put essentially project and programme managers in charge, people that are used to rolling out massive infrastructure programmes across the UK and put them in charge of these types of initiatives, I think it's a good thing.
Well, I had a couple of questions. One is that, OK, 22.5 million on cancer, great, 20 million on obesity, but it's also 40 million on mental health, 30.5 million on addiction. The mental health one is questionable to me, not that it's not serious, but can you really tackle it?
Yeah,
they're talking about a gadget that allows sufferers to monitor their mental health and instantly report to the doctor. Is that...
Another gadget? I don't want another gadget. That's causing all the mental health problems in the first place, or some of them certainly.
Yeah,
but
don't we just want to bring God back into society? Wouldn't that solve it?
We need to connect to the universal truth of reality, which I'm still trying to work out. It's a long journey, but yeah. So
we'll get there for part 3.
Yeah. No, I mean, what people really... OK, there's so many ways in which we could live better to improve our mental health. I don't think a new app that's spent 40 million... if it's just a way to record your mental health changes, a notepad will do that. I'm like a big proponent of people looking after their mental health, but I'm suspicious when the government says they're going to do it. I don't trust them.
It's £22.5 million of this 113 million on cancer, which probably works out about 16-17%. I think that's too small a percentage. I think of all the things on here... I guess, of course, if you tackle obesity and mental health at its source, then you do save money elsewhere. I understand what they're trying to do there, particularly with obesity, being a friend with obesity myself. I would say, but the cancer funding needs to be much higher. I think if you can get access to those treatments that are available in America and other countries across Europe, I think you could save yourself a lot of money.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about the addiction part as well, because no one's actually defined what it really is. Peter Hitchens got in trouble once for telling Chandler from Friends that it's not real, and that even made it into Matthew Perry's book that's haunted him for years.
Right.
But we don't have time for that debate now, sadly. Let's get on to Tuesday's Metro. And China might not be the chilled-out democracy we all assume, Jonathan.
No,
we touched on this before, but this is more detail about a reporter.
It is indeed. I mean, I'm shocked, as you are. So a BBC journalist has been beaten up and arrested by Chinese police while covering a protest. I mean, that is worth paying your TV licence for in itself. But so Edward Lawrence, a camera operator for the BBC's China Bureau, was sadly beaten and kicked by officers while covering the anti-government demonstration last night. So this is a journalist who was known to be press, from what I understand, and he was basically just beaten the daylights out of and then taken away by police in the protest. Now this is pure tyranny. That's unacceptable that this is going on. It's completely...
I would correct you and say tyranny, but I don't want to be tyrannical about your pronunciation of tyranny. Go on, Paul.
No, I mean, he was held for several hours, wasn't he? But BBC spokesman said that... spokesperson, I should say. So sorry.
It's GBNews, don't worry.
Yeah, well, OK, great, smashing. Well, they said that the Chinese authorities, and I really do mean authorities over there, don't they, said that it didn't make anybody aware that he was a journalist. So the good news is, if he'd said, "Oh, I'm a journalist," they wouldn't have beaten the living hell out of him.
And they're definitely telling the truth as well. That's the thing we know about the CCP.
That's one thing we do.
More gaslighting later. Yes.
Yes. But it's, I mean, isn't it just... I said it previously, it's a clash of two worlds, isn't it? It's a clash of two cultures. We're looking at this through the prism of a Western culture and our Western world. Sound like the Pet Shop Boys. Something reminds me of the Pet Shop Boys.
But the most insane thing about it was the Chinese officials added... the BBC said, we have no official explanation or apology from the Chinese authorities beyond a claim by the officials who later released him that they had arrested him for his own good in case he caught COVID from the crowd. A cure to shame the disease. Insane.
They're pretty obsessed with it over there. I mean, I did hear in China, there's different sort of districts, and they're trying to get their COVID stats as low as possible. If you ever watch The Wire, the show where the police are always trying to get their arrest stats sorted out, no matter what actually happens in reality. And this is what's happening here. They're trying to get their COVID stats as low as possible. So they're outdoing each other with authoritarianism, which is pretty absurd.
What surprise.
But I also find the whole thing, again, as I've said, pretty absurd that we're rightly concerned about this, but we weren't concerned about the treatment of anti-lockdown protesters in this country.
Absolutely. I mean, some of the things that they've said in here, like drones and people shouting at people, that's exactly what we did.
Absolutely. So let's do The Sun. And a British drug kingpin has been arrested. Seems like our country can't catch a break, Paul.
Exactly. A British drugs kingpin reportedly at the head of a cartel responsible for a third of Europe's cocaine market has been arrested in a daring raid. In a mammoth operation described as historic, police arrested 49 different suspected cartel members in 5 different countries. Makes you proud to be British, doesn't it, Nick?
Sounds like a top G, this guy. What do you think? What do you think, Jonathan?
He sold me a couple of top Gs. OK, this is an interesting story. A big supplier has been taken down. I don't know how that's going to affect my weekends, but we'll see. So one of the things that really makes me laugh here...
Are you the problem, Jonathan? Middle-class drug use? Do they mean you?
I'm not middle class.
Good point.
I'm
Compared to what Nick and I are.
Yeah, but who isn't? Ugh, no, I'm joking. OK, one thing that really makes me laugh is, it says here, the shameless drug dealer had a Lamborghini with the number plate, crime pays. That's beautiful. Wow. I think that might be taken straight from The Simpsons. I think it literally might be taken from The Simpsons.
Yeah, and despite Brexit, we're still very much in the single drugs market, which is great. I mean, we had. By the way, this was all a third of Europe's cocaine market.
What are we saying? Legalise everything? Get rid of the crime syndicates?
I'm not sure we're saying that.
No, I'm totally against that. Germany basically wants to legalise drugs and turn every citizen into a drug dealer. Have you seen that? They want you're allowed 2, it's very German, like 2 weed plants or something in your cannabis plants in your garden. Did you see that story?
I didn't see that, but I think there's definitely a differentiation between cannabis and cocaine.
All right, well, I would ban it all, you know me, but let's...
No, you believe in freedom?
What?
Freedom?
No, I've moved on from being a libertarian. I'm now like a sort of authoritarian.
It's just opinions.
We won't go into my views. Anyway, Tuesday's Mail, and bad news if, like me, you put your life savings into BlockFi, Jonathan.
Yes, bad news for all of us.
Everything.
All of us crypto bros. So distressed crypto firm BlockFi files for bankruptcy as fallout of FTX spreads. So a lender with more than 100,000 creditors was set to be acquired by Sam Bankman-Fried's firm. Now, obviously, that isn't happening. So the cryptocurrency lender BlockFi has filed for bankruptcy, blaming the shocking events surrounding the collapse of FTX. So the company has more than 100,000 creditors and liabilities up to 10 billion. So they're obviously in a pretty tight space at the moment. This is just the knock-on effect of FTX going under, people losing confidence in this industry, as I understand it. I'm not particularly bright, so I don't really know. But I think the idea is that people made a run on it. Everyone wants their money, so now they paused it, and now people can't. Is that right? I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, I'm not a top G. So I've not invested in cryptocurrency, and it's kind of washed over me a bit. It's a little bit complicated. But I had a look at some stats before coming on air, and right now, one Bitcoin is £13,500, and that's down from 35k less than a year ago. And what that tells you is one of the reasons is this whole thing is built on speculation. It's no different than betting on a football match or betting at the casino. It's so volatile, it's no wonder these things happen, I don't think.
You've just infuriated half the internet without realising it. The reason they got in so much trouble, they had 275 million owed from FTX. And so when FTX went, they all went. And the problem is, have you seen the treatment that Sam Bankman-Fried of FTX has been getting in the media?
He's been canonised, hasn't
he? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The sort of lefty media, because he's the second biggest, one might speculate it's because he's the second largest donor to the Democrat Party. So he has all this incredibly soft treatment. Elon Musk keeps replying on Twitter saying, why are you being so nice to him, Washington Post? The stories are all like, why Sam Bankman-Fried is so great despite everything.
Yeah.
But it's this incredible sort of whitewashing of it.
Absolutely. They're making it almost sound like he was a plant. The left have put them in there and said, if you could just do this for us. But before you do it, could you give the Democrat Party several billion quid?
Yeah. All right, let's do the Times. And monkeypox is back with a rebrand, presumably having failed to be scary enough the first time, Paul.
Yes, indeed. Monkeypox will be renamed Mpox. The World Health Organization has announced after the latest outbreak led to racism and stigmatizing language. The WHO said that both names would be used simultaneously for the next year. So that's good, isn't it? The WHO have simultaneously said this is racist, and they're going to continue to use monkeypox, a racist term, alongside the new non-racist term, Mpox.
I like how the WHO are phasing out the name of a virus.
Can you imagine doing that with
but not the actual virus?
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Could you imagine doing that with any other racist term? I'm not going to say any, but we're not going to phase them out over a year, are we? We're just, if it was, the irony of this is, if you think monkeypox is racist, the chances are you're racist, because you're making that comparison in your head. And we all know what the comparison is. And do you know what? Until I read this story, I hadn't even put those two things together. But I mean, Mpox does sound cool, doesn't it, John?
The Mpox strikes back. I mean, originally, I hear they were going to soften the brand of monkeypox by calling it cheeky monkeypox.
Yeah, monkeypox didn't really catch on, did it? They tried it too soon. I mean, a skeptic would say they tried it too soon after COVID. It didn't catch on, and it just, it just faded away. I was wondering the other day what happened to monkeypox, but it's back with a rebrand, Mpox.
The Mpox strikes back.
By the way, that was pure satire. All viruses are real. So that's it for part two. After the break, Elon Musk goes to war. The NHS brings in the robots, and China sends in the sex bots. It all makes sense. Trust me. See you in 2 minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel. Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
As a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon here with Jonathan Cogan and Paul Cox, two top comedians who are available at short notice. Tuesday's Telegraph, and a sports minister is set to defy FIFA by wearing the One Love armband and thus ending world oppression, Jonathan.
He's done it. He's finally blummin' done it. So, UK Sports Minister will defy FIFA by wearing One Love armband at England versus Wales game in Qatar. So, Britain's Sports Minister will risk the wrath of world... Risk the Wrath is quite a cool, metal band name. Anyway, Britain's Sport Minister will... I think I've got ADD. Britain's Sport Minister will risk the wrath...
on television, Jonathan.
of World Cup host Qatar by wearing a One Love armband during England's match with Wales. So Mr Andrew, who is the UK's first openly gay sports minister, will follow suit. The Department of Digital Culture, Media and Sport have confirmed. So basically, as we know, homosexuality is illegal in Qatar, and it's punishable with up to 3 years imprisonment. So I guess it is actually, it's a real protest. It's a real act of defiance. You are actually kind of putting your money where your mouth is, so to speak, and you are doing a thing.
I agree to an extent. I think good on him. Why not? What I would say is there's no risk in him doing it. No risk whatsoever. He's not going to be escorted out the stadium. Other people within the stadium, people working on the BBC, for instance, Alex Scott, she wore hers, and good for her too. But there's no risk. And as Ian Wright said, there's no protest without risk. There would have been a risk, and there would have been a proper protest, I think, if Harry Kane had fulfilled it.
Right.
I understand from a footballing and sporting perspective why he didn't, and I'm glad he didn't, because I want the focus to be on the sport. That's my perspective on this. But if you're going to stand up for weeks and months beforehand and make lots of political gestures, you need to fulfil them.
Do you think the sort of One Love armband even speaks for gay people? Because, you know what I mean? I look at it and think, well, there's lots of gay people I know who don't go for the whole kind of rainbow culture, the LGBTQ plus thing. They just don't identify with all of that. So, in a way, isn't it pushing a political agenda on Qatar? I mean, not to come across too pro-Qatar, but do you know what I mean? Do you actually believe in this armband thing in the first place?
Not particularly. I mean, it's difficult not to get swept away with what it stands for. But it does feel like a little bit of an empty gesture. Like you say, like with all of these things, it is virtue signalling. Now, the only way this becomes something that isn't virtue signalling is someone stands by their guns.
I know what you're saying. So there has been this, obviously, there's been a lot of, LGBT promotion in FIFA and everything like that. And now we're in a country where it actually... It is rebellious. It is, kind of sticking it to the homophobic man as such. That now is the time to do it.
It's a bit odd, though, isn't it? We'll just quickly end on this. It was a bit odd when England kneeled and the USA didn't. I mean, because George Floyd died in America several years ago, so we kneel and they don't. That was the sort of peak virtue signalling World Cup moment.
Yeah, it's not getting much of a mention either. It seems really odd to me now, Nick, what's going on there.
Yeah, all right, I'm going to stop watching football. It's too woke. Sticking with the Telegraph, and our new leader, Elon Musk, is going to war with Apple. Paul.
Yeah, Apple has threatened to withhold Twitter from its App Store. Elon Musk has threatened to go to war with Apple after accusing the iPhone maker of stifling free speech and threatening to block its app. Firstly, from my opinion, Apple aren't going to do this. Again, I looked at the stats before I came on air, and 7.1 billion viewers used... There were 7.1 billion views of Twitter last month. And that's up month on month, year on year. Now, for all its woke signalling, Apple is a capitalist venture. It is a capitalist company, and they're not going to want to miss out on this. This is just a reaction... And another empty threat.
I'm not sure. Because we've seen already many big advertisers pulling their ads from Twitter, and big media agencies say you should all pull your ads. Like McDonald's, they get these ad agencies and they say you all need to pull your ad. And, Musk says here, Apple has mostly stopped advertising on Twitter. Do they hate free speech in America? Quite a provocative question. Yeah. And he even put out this poll, should Apple publish all censorship actions it's taken against its customers? And it is so bizarre. We have this big tech. I know what you're saying, they're capitalists, but Apple's so rich already. They have this agenda. They're so threatened by Elon Musk. And we're in this new era where Musk is sort of single-handedly trying to save free speech. And we might end up with Twitter being this everything app that he's talked about, where we'll have payments on there. It'll be like a bank. You'll have video content. versus the sort of big tech giants, and it'll be the free alternative we've needed. But I think Apple and those they really do seem to be in that game of censorship. What do you think, Jonathan?
I think if the reason why Apple do want to not allow people to download Twitter on their phones, or they'll stop updating it, is for the ideological grounds, and that's a real problem. I mean, I guess as a private company, they should be, allowed to make whatever decisions they want within the law. But at the same time, Elon Musk, from my understanding, he's just trying to make it a platform for free expression, and they also will moderate it to an extent, so anything particularly harmful or illegal will be got rid of, right?
And did you see that Musk said he's even prepared to make his own phone if necessary?
Yeah, I saw that.
Isn't that cool? Would you buy the Musk phone?
Will there be a charging station near me?
Good question. We have to pay $8 a month. Yeah. We know that.
I'd probably give it a go. I mean, I've never bought a Tesla. That's outside of my...
Would they have to make more new software, though, for it?
It's quite funny how the...
It would just be the Twitter phone, wouldn't it?
Yeah, all you'd be able to get is Twitter. That's all it is. And just Elon Musk tweets. There's nothing else on it. Isn't it amazing how they all loved him, all the sort of media establishment and the celebrities. They all loved him when he did Tesla, because, it's green, it's climate change. And then when he did Twitter, where he had a bit of free speech, people like Stephen King have had a meltdown. Like, I loved him with Tesla, but not sure about this new Twitter thing. It's like, right, because it goes against your political biases.
He's barely done anything either.
Right.
I mean, they're getting their knickers in a right twist over Twitter, right? And it's all about the fact that he's going to unblock certain accounts. We all know what those accounts are, but...
The good ones.
The fun ones, the reason that we used to all use Twitter. But I think Apple are doing Elon Musk's job for him by doing this.
All right, let's do the times. And Rolls-Royce and EasyJet have teamed up in the most natural combo since fish and a much worse, cheaper fish, Jonathan.
So Rolls-Royce and EasyJet test is breakthrough for hydrogen fuel in air travel. So the hydrogen jet engine has been successfully tested at Boscombe Down in Amesbury, Wiltshire. EasyJet has contributed its operational understanding of consumer air flying to the project, while Rolls-Royce has used its expertise in developing engines. There seems to be this collaboration between these two giants of engineering and travel, and I think it's a leap forward in pulling at straws. No, it's a leap forward in air travel, because it's by using hydrogen, it is bringing them closer to their net zero goals.
And I can tell that's a passion subject for you, Jonathan. Don't you think the sentence "EasyJet has contributed its operational understanding of consumer air flying" is a lol sentence?
Yeah, I think they should have been inverted commas over operational understanding. I mean, what a pairing, by the way. What a pairing. Rolls-Royce and EasyJet. They finally come together. A match made in Amesbury, by the way. Amesbury's wonderful. Amesbury is wonderful. It's near Stonehenge. Lovely bakery there.
Stonehenge, OK.
Yeah, so
I could talk about that.
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with Stonehenge. I mean, hydrogen's great. Its only product is water. I think it's cheaper to produce than petrol.
Do you say hydrogen's great? Controversial pro-hydrogen stance. This is why people come to GB.
This is the only platform that'll take my hydrogen stance. But
sorry to interrupt. You were making a serious point.
No, I was going to attempt a serious point, and that is that I think we should have all forms of energy on the table, and hydrogen's a great one for a number of reasons.
OK. The one thing I found a bit funny about this, and we won't dwell on this story too much, Jonathan, I don't want to cause you any more pain, but Grant Shapps, everyone's favourite politician, said the UK is leading the global shift to guilt-free flying. I've already achieved that. I mean, I actually don't fly, but if I did, it would be... I haven't left the country for 6 years, but if I did, it would be with no guilt.
Exactly.
Sans guilt. All right, let's do
Unless you left your dog at home.
You what?
Unless you left your dog at home.
There is always that. Yeah. But I don't have a dog either, so I'm covered. The Telegraph and the robots are coming to change your bedpan, Paul. See what I did?
Yeah, exactly.
NHS robots.
The NHS should look to robots to plug staffing gaps, the Health Secretary has said, as strike looms. And that's really what this is all about. Steve Barclay said the Health Service needed to make far more use of artificial intelligence. That's just what we need, isn't it? More automated robots in the NHS. Have you ever tried to make an appointment recently? It's like trying to visit the Wizard of Oz.
I know. We sort of started with we need immigrant workers to plug the NHS gap. Then it was even if they can't speak English. Now it's just robots. Jonathan, what do you think?
Well, my wife already uses a robot to plug her gaps, so...
Carry on.
So basically, what do I think? I think, look, if AI, if used efficiently and properly, and it's quicker, it'll eventually become cheaper, and it's more accurate. Say, for example, we can't be Luddites. We can't stand in the way of progress. If it works and it does the job, fantastic. we have, cheaper everything because it's made by robots.
Quite sinister, though, isn't it? I mean, I sometimes think that all of the 2020 stuff was about getting us used to being sort of phased out. Get them used to staying at home, get them universal basic income, because the robots are going to do it all soon anyway. These are some of my theories. And then, isn't it a bit sinister? Would a robot really care if you're on live support and it has to decide whether to turn you off or...
Oh, it's set to euthanasia mode.
Yeah, it would see you as purely in utilitarian terms, wouldn't it? Definitely you.
Depends how the program.
I'm not for this, really. I think the NHS needs people, and the people need a functioning NHS, Nick. I think there's a soft skill that's going to be lacking from any robot in the near future. You've already mentioned it. You're at your most vulnerable when you're accessing the NHS, generally, I think. Particularly you, John.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's do the Daily Mail. And I thought the way to stop lockdown protests was to demonise people via the media, but turns out it's sex bots, Jonathan.
Yeah, so oh, no, they're not NHS. So sex bots are used to curb Chinese COVID protests. Porn accounts flood Twitter with racy escort ads and erotic videos in Beijing plot to drown out reports on riots. So a torrent of spam posts advertising escort services have flooded Twitter amid protests against China's COVID protocols.
So it's a psyop. It's like instead of going out and protesting, we'll flood you with bots. You'll be just bamboozled by all these sex bots, and you won't go out.
Never seen a naked lady, and you just be like, you know what? Freedom isn't that good when I've got, a $25...
But it makes no sense, does it? It doesn't make zero sense.
It's not going to work.
But they want zero COVID policy is what they're protesting about, which doesn't allow people to go outside. So what they're saying is you need to pay attention to the rules, but if you don't do that, you can pay for sex.
So, yeah, I mean, the question is, could you even do that, or are they just distracting with the idea of it? Like, is there actually somebody at the end of their... if you click on that link... I'm asking for a friend. If you click on that link, will there be somebody there to tuck you in at night?
The viewers at home, if you could send links to both Jonathan and I, that would be great.
But also, you don't think this is... when, you're scrolling through Instagram and then your girlfriend looks over your shoulder and it's just pictures of women in bikinis with huge thighs, and I'm like, oh, yeah, China's flooded my phone. It's not just...
I've never had your girlfriend look over my shoulder, Jonathan.
None of us have had that problem, Jonathan, but that's all for part 3. In the final part, gaslighting Bob Dylan and evil magpies. Trust me, it'll be good. See you in 2 minutes.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Welcome back to the final part of Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon, still here with Kogi and Coxie, as we now call them. I've got to know them over the course of the show. So Tuesday's Mail and a tobacco plant has started to produce cocaine. I mean, how does that even work? Did it lick itself and get on the addiction cycle, Paul? What happened
I'm not
here?
sure that's how it works, but scientists genetically modify a tobacco plant to produce cocaine in its leaves. The breakthrough could lead to a way to manufacture cocaine or produce chemically similar compounds for medicinal purposes, obviously.
Yeah, and can I just say, this was a team in a lab in China. And my favourite thing is when labs in China experiment with new wacky ideas.
As long as they don't take it to the market.
Do you think it's weird that a big cocaine cartel is shut down and all of a sudden there are plants that can grow cocaine now?
That's a good point.
I mean, just
leaking the stories.
Exactly.
That's good journalism,
exactly. The story behind the story.
I just keep asking myself why. It says they want to recreate the cocaine in the tobacco plant. I'm like, why? This breakthrough could lead to a way to manufacture cocaine or produce chemically similar compounds. I mean, stop. But they are for medicinal purposes, as I understand. I don't know if that's medicinal purposes in quotes or actual medicinal purposes.
Well, yeah, I mean, they say money doesn't grow on trees, but this one grows a lot of money. Yeah, medicinal purposes. Who uses cocaine for medicinal purposes?
Well, everyone looking at me.
Well, yeah, Jonathan's trying to avoid breaking more broadcast regulations after the last section. But anything to add on this story, Jonathan?
Yeah, you know, just cocaine is made from a leaf, so it is essentially a salad. Be healthy, people.
All right, sticking with the Mail, gaslighting is named the word of 2022, but I don't even think it's a real thing. It's all in your head, I think, Jonathan.
I think it might be. So, yeah, gaslighting is named the word of 2022, according to Merriam-Webster, after searches on its website soared 1,740% in a year. So there wasn't a single event which drove the spikes in the curiosity people in this word, but it was just a general search over the year, and it's really kind of grown and become the main term that people have searched. So gaslighting causes the victim to question the validity of their own thoughts, perception, and their view of reality, and it leads to loss of confidence and self-esteem, uncertainty of one's emotional or mental stability, and a dependency on the perpetrator. So it's a kind of nasty, nefarious thing to do, and it came from a play in 1938, written in 1938, which had a story where a husband attempts to drive his wife insane by, among other things, dimming the gas lights in the house and claiming she's imagining it. So he's basically psyching her out.
Yeah. And what's interesting about it is that this story even admits that it's not just a personal thing, that the media and politicians now use it. I was quite surprised to see the Mail openly admit the media do it. They say it's a tool usually used by abusers in relationships and by politicians and other newsmakers.
Other newsmakers, yeah.
Other newsmakers, not us, but yeah. Because there's this news cycle in media now, isn't there, where it says it's not happening. Then they switch to it's happening, but it's a good thing. And that's a kind of meme online now. Because they've done it to us so many times. They've gaslit us saying it's not the COVID lab leak theory or whatever it is. You know what I mean? They say it's not, and then suddenly it is what we all thought it was. And then we're allowed to know that. And that's gaslighting. Paul, what do you think?
It stifles all debate, doesn't it? It's worked brilliantly at home with Mrs. Cox. I mean, I've, every time she says something to me, I have switched from saying you've made that up, you must have heard it wrong, to playing the victim now. I'm now the victim several times a day, and I'm really relishing that position. It's not a word that I've used too much, if I'm honest, even with Mrs. Cox.
But it's been used about you.
It's been used about me. No, it hasn't.
You just outed yourself. Carry on.
It has. We read. Yeah.
You're misremembering that. But a word that's been around since 1938. When was the first time you heard this word? Because I can't remember hearing it much before 2018.
Not that long ago, maybe like 7 years ago or so.
Yeah. You're woker than I am, so...
No, I think I heard it in the literal sense. I was trying to look up how to make somebody go crazy because they were bothering me, and I came across it. So,
they say it's been around since the 60s, but really it's amped up a lot recently in light of the media doing it to us far more. That's what's basically happening.
Stifles debate is what it does.
Yeah. All right, let's do the Times. And Bob Dylan is in trouble for using a machine to pen his signature. Wait till they find out it wrote half the songs, Paul.
I'm a big Bob Dylan fan.
So am I. It's a little joke. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, I wasn't offended. I'll write a tweet about it later, Nick. It was an error of judgment. Bob Dylan apologises for using a machine to autograph hand-signed books, blaming vertigo in the pandemic. Nice one, Bob. The book was released in November with limited run of 900 hand-signed editions on sale for about 600 quid. Now, I think, Bob Dylan's 81. I think the only thing I don't like about this is he or his publishers felt the need to blame it on vertigo or the pandemic. He could have just said, I'm too tired, I'm too knackered, I don't want to have to do this. That doesn't make them not limited editions. If you've got a machine-written Bob Dylan's signature on one of these limited edition books, you've still got one of those books.
You've still got a
endorsed
machine.
by Bob.
Yeah.
You've still got you've still got the machine.
Well, first he uses the electric guitar, then he uses an electric autograph machine. Judas is what I'd say. No, there was actually a suggestion going around from fans that he should actually now sign these books a second time, but then they said, don't ink twice, it's all right.
Oh, nice. You got in a little... that's a reference to a Bob Dylan song, guys. Are you a big Dylan fan? Dylan, who's better, Dylan or Cohen? Leonard Cohen?
Dylan.
Yeah,
Dylan.
musically I prefer Dylan, but lyrically, it's a tight one lyrically.
They're both great.
I just alienated half the country with that reference. They're going, what's he talking about? Let's do the Daily Star. This is a more mainstream one. A story about magpies. Apparently it's 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy, and 3 to remember your face, then peck your eyes out, Jonathan.
Yeah, so this is another reason why I'm scared of birds. So evil magpies that remembers faces injure hundreds of people if they don't share food. So in Victoria, a state in southeast Australia, there have registered 3,276 attacks so far in 2022, with 447 injuries as a result, including instances where magpies gouge people's eyes and swoop on kids. So extremely aggressive magpies in Australia that jam their beaks in people's eyes, chase cyclists and gouge children's faces, force the closure of public spaces every year. And the problem is apparently just getting worse and worse. This sounds terrifying. This is straight out Hitchcock.
This line bothered me a lot. If you think a magpie has it in for you, you're probably right. That's how I feel about woke comedians. Yeah, it's quite disturbing. And they're telling you, like, drop your feet. What they say my favourite bit is when they say stare it down. The Magpie Alert website, which is a great site, by the way, guys, suggests wearing sunglasses and facing down the birds as they usually attack when people look away. So they're kind of like gangsters. They respond to, like, eye contact and strength. But if you look away, they'll just go for your eye.
Which is absolutely terrifying. I don't think this is unique to magpies, though. In my experience, most hungry Australians become extremely aggressive. But this, honestly, things like birds with Hitchcock, it didn't strike the fear of God into me. It was a thriller, but it fascinated me. I would be worried if they're attacking the eyeballs. That's a bit of a concern.
I reckon I could take 3 or 4 magpies at once. Cover your eyes like that and just swoop.
You just said that on TV.
Yeah,
the
let's make it
magpies
happen.
are watching, John.
Yeah?
Yeah, mate, it's all over for you tomorrow.
They don't watch GB.
Isn't it weird that they do it if you don't share your food? If they see you not sharing... What are they, communist magpies? If they see you not sharing your food, they'll actually go for you. Has this ever happened? Have you been attacked by a bird in the street, Jonathan?
Pigeons?
Pigeons. Have I been attacked by a bird in the street? No, I have had a seagull fly into my flat once and I had to get out with arm gloves.
OK,
yeah.
But it didn't peck you in the eye?
No.
All right, well, that story was probably not great, but let's finish with The Sun and an uplifting story about a zombie virus, Paul.
Oh, my goodness, that's just what we need, isn't it? New disease X-pandemic fear as zombie Pandora's box virus revived after 50,000 years trapped under frozen lake. This is in Serbia, by the way. The disease, found trapped beneath a lake bed in Yakutia for 48,500 years, is believed to be the oldest live virus to be recovered so far. I think this is as a result of climate change. I think they're linking the two things. It infects single-cell organisms and is not believed to pose a threat to humans, experts say. And we can always trust experts.
And we should change the name because zombie virus is offensive. What about Z virus?
Yeah, exactly. Z-pox?
Yes. What do you think, Jonathan? This is the new deadly virus.
The new deadly virus. Well, they're saying
it's quite a light story to end on.
It's quite a light story to end. They're saying, you know, that it's something to worry about, but also it's absolutely nothing to worry about. So, you know, I once got a virus from Pandora's box. It was fine. It was like the whole thing here is just a scare tactic. But the problem is there might actually be deadly viruses under the ice. So let's keep our distance.
Let's panic.
Yes.
All right, well, that was a very uplifting ending. And I think that's it for tonight, guys. Thanks to Jonathan Cogan and Paul Cox for filling in. There they are, putting their thumbs up like total legends. I've been Nick Dixon, of course. We are back tomorrow at 11 p.m. We've also got the 5 a.m. repeat, which is all very complicated. But make sure you watch us either at 5 a.m. or 11 p.m. or on YouTube. There's so many places to watch. But for now, good night and God bless. I'm still going to say God bless, guys.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by 2 of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.